October was a rough month for about everyone. There are a lot of external forces happening to make the car industry a little bit rough right now. And I just go at the end of the day, like, what is success to you? And at the end, really what it is, are you moving more metal and do you have more cars in the drive or more dollars per RO? It really is that simple. And too often as we get so consumed with all these other things that say, no, that other stuff's important, but it's all a byproduct of, did we sell more vehicles? What if I told you the secret weapon to success in the automotive world isn't just selling cars, but training the people who sell them? Welcome into Facts Not Feelings. I'm your host, Brooke Furniss, where today we are diving deep into training and why it is the lifeline of car dealerships across the United States. With us today is Don Brady, a savant in automotive training. You may know him more for PS I Ship Cars, but he is a trainer. We're here to uncover the most effective strategies that keep dealerships thriving in a rapidly evolving industry. Stay tuned as we explore how continuous learning can transform challenges into triumphs and build unshakable trust with customers. Don, welcome into the show, buddy. How you doing?
Good. How are you? I can't believe I'm on Brooke Furniss's show. So,
well, I can't. We were talking offline. I was like, we've exchanged a few selfies here there during shows. I'm like, this is like the first time we've actually had time to chat. In fact, I remember there was Digital Dealer, I don't know how many years ago, and we were in Orlando-ish area, Tampa is where it was. And you were dressed up as like a vet, but holding a sign, and you were like getting crap for it. Like, that's like, for some reason, like seared into my mind for some reason. I don't know why.
Yep. So I'm a 10-year U.S. Army combat veteran. So I felt like it was okay that I dressed up that way. But I was raising money actually for a vet's home in the Tampa area. And yeah, it was crazy because people that know me, when I go to Starbucks, I call it my satellite office. As I travel, I always stop at Starbucks and I always take a selfie in front of it. And, but I was at that Starbucks there, and they asked me to leave because they thought I was a homeless guy. So, but anyway, yeah, it was unique. But I as you guys all know, I absolutely love the car business, and I've been around it now for 27 years, and it's every day is a blessing, and every day is exciting. So,
amen to that. And I asked though, because I those that do follow you know that your satellite office is 100% Starbucks. And I love all the posts. Like, your posts make me laugh. I don't know who's doing your graphics, but kudos to them. But what is your Starbucks order?
So I get, this is horrible because you'll know why I've got the weight on me that I shouldn't have, but I get a venti white chocolate mocha with whole milk and extra whipped cream, and I get it once a day, every day. So yeah, it's at least 25 of my pounds, I think.
See, mine is, I'm a big tea person, so it's either going to just be a venti iced tea, just unsweetened. I do like my chai tea, so during the winter I'll go with chai tea latte, but green tea, any type of tea I'm happy with. So yeah, the white mocha, man, I'm not a big coffee person, but that's pretty dang good right there.
It is good.
All right, let's get this thing started off here. So I want to start from the very, very beginning. Considering that training is often cited as the number one need across dealerships in our nation, can you identify the core areas where you believe dealerships are most lacking in terms of training?
So I'm gonna actually go back in my life first. And I was raised an Army brat, and then I spent 10 years in the U.S. Army. And obviously in the military, it starts with basic training. They call it basic training. And then you go to advanced training. And then you go basically to your entire career is OJT, on-the-job training. And there's different schools they send you throughout the military. So my whole beginnings from childhood to my work age was all about training and getting to that next level. And of course, all of us, we go through 12 years of high school and then college. And, so training is important for all of us to continue on with our lives, right? And then I get into the car business in 1997, and I was very fortunate to start working with a car dealer group that really truly believed in training. And I believe that was my next basic training, was when I went through it. And I spent 5 years there, and I consider that 5 years boot camp. And not only did they train us, but they also enabled us to get out there and look. Like, I found a class at Joe Verdi's in Atlanta, Georgia, and I went to the owner, and he says, "Hey, if you want to go, I'll pay for half." And I was all about, I'll pay for half. Let's go. I want to continue to grow. And of course, that led from being a salesperson all the way to I was ultimately, my last 5 or 6 years in the retail side, I was a general manager. And I wouldn't be a dealer principal today, which I am at a small dealership, but I wouldn't be if I hadn't had all that training and all those people that put their arms around me all those years. So to answer your question, which took me a long time to get to the answer, I think it's consistency. It's not just having a great onboarding, it's consistency and realizing that they need to continue to train every single day throughout, every day, all through the year.
Amen to that. I had Corey Smith on last year, and we were just talking a lot about training, obviously, but we were just talking in general just about, hey, it's great that you onboard people, but what are you doing a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later? Because too often we get whether it's a shiny new tool or it's something that we actually do need, but we only do a portion of it. And then we just kind of goes to the wayside. I've seen so many tools, honestly, are so awesome. And there's all this excitement up front, and then never again does anyone even touch it. It's like, okay, we're done. No, it's like a little kid on Christmas morning, like all this fun stuff, all the toys I'm going to play with, and then like, I'm bored of this, I'm done. So on the onboarding topic here, you've got so much experience with what you have. What are the most effective methods for onboarding new automotive sales staff, especially with the increasing use of digital tools?
Well, so with the increasing use of digital tools, and I have a lot of vendor friends in the space that I tell them you cannot go into a dealership and land the owner or the general manager or the sales manager or the finance people or and then cheer that you just made the sale and then leave. Onboarding is so important, and continual training, again, we go back to that, is so important, because there is so many people that they'll land a big dealer group at Digital Dealer or at NADA, and then 4 months later, it's a flat cancel. And the only reason it took 4 months is because it didn't catch up to the general manager that he was still paying for this tool, right? So I think that has to happen. The continual training has to happen. But as far as the salespeople, and I'm so excited. I'm getting ready to join Fred and Lou, and I'm out there. I'm going to be on airplanes like them, and I'm going to be in planes, trains, and automobiles, and going to dealerships. And I think that the true answer is not just to give the lesson and high five them that they took the class and give them a little certificate that they can hang on their wall. It's going to be that I want to put my arms around those salespeople. I want to check in with them as often as I possibly can to see how they're doing, to see what they've run into. Because sometimes our training may not be effective for somebody, right? And if you don't stay with them and get their, hey, Don, that didn't really work for me. This is what happened. We got to learn how to pivot. Pivot is probably the biggest, what we're so good at in this industry. We pivot. Pandemic, whatever, we're going to get around it. We're going to pivot. We're going to do what we got to do. The digital retailing, pivot. It's constant. Used car prices are plummeting. We pivot. New car price, there's a chip shortage and new cars aren't coming in. We pivot. It's just what we do.
It's so true. And there's so many things to unpack there. And that is, you go back and look at the pandemic, and even post-pandemic, what happened is that we were able to say, okay, this works, this doesn't work. How can we best do whatever? So whether it doesn't really matter what you're doing, but it is taking that. And I also want to point out, like, it wasn't until you said something, I've had a bit of a crazy couple weeks here. So I didn't even know you were with Fred and Lou. And you're like, oh, actually, I've been with them since like 2020. I was like, well, I had no idea you've been with them that long. But now you're officially doing training with them as well. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. I'm so excited. They are like, to their core, just really good guys. And of course, the three of us are all veterans. We all have dealership experience. I'm probably, and I don't even know I honestly don't know how old they are, but I'm pretty sure I'm the old guy, right? I'm the guy. But I bring with that. Not only did I spend 10 years in the military, but 27 years, former general manager. Now I've been on the vendor side with shipping for 5 years. I'm a dealer principal that is actually started a dealership from the ground up and struggled and fell on my face more times than I can say over the last year and a half. But I learn every day, and it's I'm relative, I guess. In addition to, I can actually sit there with the general manager at any dealership in the country and say, I've been in your shoes. I can also look at the dealer principal and say, I'm in your shoes. I know what you're going through. And to the salespeople, I was that, kid that was probably a little older than the other kids around me that got out of the military and had a clip-on tie when I went in for my, I never sold anything, and I had a clip-on tie and I went for my interview and heard the dealer say, I don't know if you're going to be able to do this, Don. We appreciate your military service, but we don't see it that you can be a great salesperson. And of course, here I am. I mean, I don't want to hire the best salespeople. I want to hire those people that are passionate, that don't want to lie to people, don't want to pressure people, and but they're outgoing enough to where they can actually talk to people and be themselves. The rest of it, the product knowledge, the 10 steps to the sale, you can train that stuff, right? But you can't train passion. You can't train hire good people, and the rest will follow. I mean, that's how I feel about that.
It's interesting. So it's probably like 2 weeks ago, an episode dropped from Raymond Scarpelli. He's a Ray Auto Group. And we were just talking a lot about this, like saying, hey, when you hire people, and they do such a great job there of like, how do you go about hiring people? And it was and I obviously have seen the first time, so I had my client of mine, and just going through and it's that like sometimes we have to tell people and teach them how to talk to people and how to interact. And if you just hire good people, the selling portion, that can be taught as long as they're okay with selling. Some people are very against it. They shouldn't be doing selling. But by and large, as long as you've got a good person and their heart's in the right place, you've got all those other, I'll say, quality stuff can be taught. And in fact, a lot of times I'll look at hiring outside the automotive. In the dealership, for instance, it was like, okay, let's go grab somebody from a maitre d' or someone that's in the food services, because one, the hours are better. I've worked in food service, so I know it is, but also they already know how to talk to people, to talk to strangers, and the other stuff can be taught.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you recommend that dealerships maintain, because we've talked about consistency quite a bit, so how do they maintain that consistency in training across multiple locations, especially for larger groups that operate in diverse markets?
Well, first and foremost, I would say reach out to Don Brady, Fred and Lou. Sorry, shameless plug. But no, really, it's you got to track it. You got to hold them accountable. Which I know that's a catchphrase in the industry, but you have to. I mean, I remember when I would have training sessions set up for my sales teams. You have some of the people that had been in the business for longer than the ones that were new. You also want to train at their level, because obviously you don't need to train 10 steps to the sale to someone that's been at your dealership for 30 years. So you got to have different levels of training. But those people that have been there 30 years still need training. You can't just push them to the side or let them do what they're going to do, because like you mentioned earlier, all these different tools are coming in, right? The shiny toys that the dealer's excited and the general manager is excited. Well, if you don't let them help them and teach them how to do that, the whole teach an old guy or old dog new tricks, you have to. And then the young people will grow up with that new tool until the tool changes or the market or the world changes again. I think to answer your question, it's got to be accountability. It's got to be good tracking, so where they're at. I mean, obviously the number one way to see how it's going is if they're selling more cars, if they're servicing more cars, that's the tool that's the level of tracking that from the dealer principal, he's looking at what's my statement look like at the net at the end, right? But all through that, there's so much involved, and it takes more than the owner can't be the only one tracking the GM, the salespeople, the sales managers. You have to teach the salespeople to track themselves and see where they see themselves going, and that's set goals that are real and track those. And there's so much involved in that. And, but yeah, I think they have to. And as far as other stores, obviously, as you know, I travel and I drink Starbucks, and I don't want to say I'm a little critical. I'm probably a lot critical, because that coffee should taste the same in Ohio as it does in Nevada. Right.
Yes.
And so think about that from that level, the level of training and processes that Starbucks does to make sure that every barista across the whole world is making that coffee to taste exactly the same, right? I think it's the same with sales training within a group. And I would love to say across the whole nation that every dealership, but everybody has different values and thought processes. And the neat thing about a car dealer group is they don't really have to be the same as another group, right? They have to be, but they want consistency within their group. Now, the OEMs, however, would love to have you walk into every Cadillac store, for example, and have your experience the same across all Cadillac stores. So they try to train at a higher level, and then they get pushback. Think of the pushback they get from the owners, the GMs, all the way down to the salespeople, the pushback that I don't like this process, but they go out there and they try to hold them accountable same way.
You bring up so many good points there. Like, I lived in Japan for a year, and I'm not a big McDonald's fan. For those who are watching and know this, like, I just am not. But I do when I used to drink soda, and I drank a ton. I could not wait to get to the nearest McDonald's in Japan because the Diet Cokes taste identical. Like, it didn't matter if I was in Utah, Chicago, Arizona, Japan. It tastes the same. So when you brought the Starbucks, the second thing is like, so while I'm a big tea drinker, a huge tea drinker, I was introduced to cold brew recently, and I was like, oh, I can drink this. I'm not a big coffee drinker, but there's something about the cold brew. It's just a little bit more smoother. It's a little bit more smooth. It's got more, almost like a mocha taste to it. So I do like my Starbucks. I'm a big fan of it. And I go to get one, and I've learned now I have to ask beforehand, do you have it brewed? Because I went to take a drink and I was like, this is coffee. This is not a cold brew. And so it's happened like twice with like random, I'll say more remote Starbuckses that I just like, oh, this is not the same. And you're so accustomed to that same experience. And even when it comes in the dealership world, it's not that we're just moving people around to say, but hey, if this person happens to move on to greener pastures or decides, hey, the auto industry isn't for them, totally fine. We're going to bring this other person, and we're not just going to drop you in front of a freaking computer and be like, hey, good luck with this. Hope you figure it out. You can get all your training you need for everything that we do in a matter of 3 hours. Like, no, because you've got, all these different, and that's not even training. That's just like, I'm lazy, and we wouldn't do that in any other industry. I was talking to Joe St. John with AutoFi, this was a couple years ago, and he mentioned something. I'm going to script the fact here, like how much training that the employees go through to make a freaking it's not 99 cents anymore, but at the time, a 99 cents burrito. I was like, this is crazy. The pamphlet's forever long. So you look at these really, really successful companies and how much training. It's not just, I think too often is onboarding is synonymous with other words that aren't really onboarding. This is a long-term thing. Hey, it's not just I hired you. Okay, I hired you in through the HR protocol that. No, now there's all these other steps to ensure that we've set you up for success. We've given you the tools and the keys that you need for success.
It reminds me of a saying that I'm sure you've heard in the car business, but where a dealer says, I can't spend so much money on training because if I do, what happens if they leave? And then the answer is, well, the bigger question is, what happens if they stay? How much are they going to cost you if they do stay with you and you don't have them trained? And then the whole definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I do think that the number one thing that every car dealer in the world needs is training. I think there's no magic bullet to anything else. I think if you are wondering how you're going to get to the next level, training is the answer. I believe that with all my heart. And it's why I'm so excited about getting out there and doing just that. And I don't think just salespeople need training. I think honestly, and this kind of is hard to say, but I think the number one person in a car dealership that needs trained is the owner, the dealer principal. And then the second person that really needs trained in the business is the general manager. And then it goes all the way down, and honestly, all the way down to the janitor. Everybody in the car dealership. And then I love Disney. I love Disney's training, I should say, and I think everyone should have some type of a dealer or a Disney type training where they're guests, not customers. And how are you going to treat your guests? I've always loved that concept. And I think everyone can get to the next level if they just train.
And it's still, I love how many times that the Disney experience gets brought up here, and it is so true. And obviously they're cast members, and it does bug me sometimes. Well, almost every time when we're calling our customers, when they are customers, they're more than that. They're clients, they're guests. So those little terminology changes. The same thing as like a test drive. Like instead of saying test, there's just all these different words that have a very negative. I'll say not all, but some have a negative connotation. So turning that into something more positive. So I got to ask then, because we talk about this training and how success becomes is how do you measure this? Because it becomes really challenging to measure success. So how do you track the effectiveness of training?
Well, I mentioned it earlier. The number one way is he was selling 5 cars. Now he's selling 15. Something happened. He didn't just wake up one day and say, okay, I'm now a 15-car guy instead of a 5-car guy. So, obviously, I think you measure in baby steps. So if you set goals and they hit those small, short-term goals, you set long-term goals and they hit those, then you just keep raising the bar and you keep, and I think that as far as measuring, I think it needs to be written and not just hey, you're doing good job on the training. I think it's written so you can see exactly where they're at, where they were, where they're at. Because what's going to happen is if you stop training, I think what will happen is, because it's just human nature, they'll start falling back. They'll go back to their old ways. So you gotta measure it. I mean, like you said, you have to measure it and show them that process. It's no different than, I guess I just picture when your kids were small and you're measuring their height on the wall. There's this tick mark, as they grow. I think you do the same thing with the people that are going through the training. So you can always see where that tick mark is and where they're at. So.
And then to that point, like I was talking to, October was a rough month for about everyone. There are a lot of external forces happening to make the car industry a little bit rough right now. And I just go, at the end of the day, like, what is success to you? And at the end, really what it is are you moving more metal and do you have more cars that drive or more dollars per RO? It really is that simple. And too often as we get so consumed with all these other things that say, that other stuff's important, but it's all a byproduct of, did we sell more vehicles? Did we move more metal? Did we have more vehicles or more dollars per hour on our service lane? And it really is that simple. Like when we really get down to it, so yes, Brooke was only selling 2 cars. Now she's selling 5 cars. Service lane, hey, we increased here and here. Well, then something's working. I mean, yes, there's sometimes just the times that everything increases. We've all been through that at this point. But by and large, are we accomplishing those things? So I want to tackle another topic that's might be a little bit of a hot button for a lot of us in our industry, or those perceiving it of our industry, is the trust factor. So how can salespeople use training to enhance transparency and build trust with potential customers?
So, that's I've always said the whole digital retailing, I don't know what the word was, but basically all of a sudden it seemed like the pandemic really blew up the digital retailing world. I've always said the number one buzzword is transparency. So, yep. and with transparency, trust comes with transparency, period. And it's always been that way. I mean, if you think back, and I can't think back this far, and you can't either because you're younger than I am, but the Moroni label on a new yep. car, right? That was. I don't know if you probably know the history. That was Senator Moroni. It was up in Congress, and he came up with, hey, you can't walk into a car dealership, and because you look like a guy that can afford to pay $15,000 for this truck, you have to put the Moroni label. The MSRP is on there, manufacturer's suggested retail price. So that was as transparent as the car industry. That was probably the biggest thing oh my God, this is horrible, right? Now we're putting a window sticker with a price on it. We can't just charge whatever we want for these vehicles, right? So that was a huge step in the transparency direction, and it was a long time ago, right? Well, people were all upset. Carvana, Vroom, all these were coming out, and people don't want to go through going into a car dealership and go through all the rigmarole. And I called to get my best price, and then all they did was say, when can you be here? They didn't want to give me my best price till I came in. I mean, all that stuff, right? So the digital retailing, and then of course, then we have the pandemic, where now people are stuck at their house, but they still need to buy cars, and they want to buy cars. And it was, so I saw that explosion in the word transparency. Everybody, customers just want you to be transparent. We want everyone to be transparent. I mean, when you go in to buy a TV, you want someone that's going to help you and be transparent about the pricing and what it will do for you and all those things, right? So if they want the customers to trust them, the salespeople, you got to be transparent. You got to answer, and you got to answer their questions. I mean, whatever questions they ask, the answer can't be, when can you be here? I mean, you got to answer their questions. And I know you said you talked to Joe St. John and AutoFi. That's another big push towards transparency. Again, you want to be really, really, really good in this business. Be transparent with your customers. Be honest with your customers, and that's a huge thing. And then I think be yourself. I know some people will say that you become a car salesperson, you're on stage and it's an act, and I find that none of that works. Just be you, be yourself, be human. care about them, care about their needs, find out what their needs are, and help them the solution, find the solution to their concerns. And that's how you build trust in this business.
There's a couple things on that. One, I've done enough presentation on this that it's like it just comes second nature to me. But can you imagine if you're on Amazon and you're looking at the price of whatever it does on Amazon and it just says like call for price? Like, would we ever again? Like, no. Or if I'm a consumer and I know, well, the price says $17.99, but I know if I go around them and I go to Billy Bob up here, Billy Bob's going to give me a better price. Like, no, you've lost all credibility at that point. So it's so much more than just having a pricer. It's honoring. And I know we could talk about price all till whenever, and there's been some ebbs and flows, to say the least, over the last few years. In the day is the old school, just get them in, is not the way that you're going to make money. Like, it's not the way that you're going to be successful long term. And so that's something that definitely gets me a little hot and bothered sometimes. I'm just like, hey, it's not that difficult. Like, the question is then, are you setting the rest of your team up for success? If I say you can't give out price, well, one, due to some legislation that's coming out of the pike, you're going to have to, or you can get the freaking government can come after you. That's number one. Number two is having a BDC that says, are they just glorified phone appointment takers? Like, is that all they can do? Or can they actually provide price and provide information? And then when needed, then transit over to whomever. But those little things make such a difference when you think about the process in its entirety in a holistic approach. So yeah. I do want to ask though, like, so as we talk about technology, whether there's all different technology out there, how frequently should training programs be updated to stay relevant?
And I don't know that that's a calendar answer. Like, I don't know that I can tell you that it's every 10 days or it's once a month or once every 6 months. I think you got to roll with the punches. I think you have to, obviously, if the software you're using 6 months, you were trained 6 months ago and it's all operating exactly the same as it was 6 months ago, then I don't know that you have to have a full-blown re-onboarding, right? But I think the I say consistent, which is a cop out to your answer to your question. But if you have teams and small teams, I think you have to watch the progress, and some people you may have to train them every day, and then there's other ones or check where they're at every day or check once a week, and you can usually tell. Like I'll use, and I'm not trying to throw a name, but Vin Solutions, I was one of the ones that I used, and it wasn't necessarily the easiest, right? But there was a lot of good things that came from it, and I would see, you can tell which of my salespeople were struggling with it, right? And then so their training might be a lot more often than the ones that are clicking right along, right? vAuto, I think, is one of the greatest tools I ever used, right? And I remember as a GM, I remember bringing that vAuto guy into my office and say, look, show me what else this can do. Show me what else this can do. And then I would hold my managers, accountable for what it could do. And then they would then hold the salespeople with their part of it, what they would do, right? But there was things that, I can tell you right now, if you talk to anyone that uses vAuto or you talk to a vAuto rep, they would tell you that the teams out there might be using 20% of what that tool can do, right?
Agreed.
Which is sad. But if you continually train and measure and watch where they're going, if you get them to all using 100% of what that tool can do, there's no glass ceiling. You're going to bust right through it. Keep going.
Yeah, and it's the same thing holds true with the CRMs. Like I was working at the dealership. This is many years ago, and they had actually, I won't say they scrapped their CRM, but pretty much just scrapped their CRM. He's like, no one uses it anyways. We're using like 2% of it. So sheet. And I was just go, one, this is an incredible thing that you have here. That being said, it's a lot of manual labor. Even though you made all the formulas and everything, that's a lot of work to put in to get the same result. He goes, but why would I pay for a tool that my team's not going to use? Like, I understand that. I also know your name's on the building, so it comes down to you, and it's, top on down. So so there's a lot of things with that, but it's crazy how little tools that we use. And you and I can go back, and I say this and I date myself, but I'm like, man, Rolodex, man, we had a little like 3x5 cards and like go and find stuff. And yet everything that you want to know about anyone is at your fingertips. Yet we complain about it and we say we're not selling enough vehicles. And Is it because we're so reliant on technology? I don't know, but it is just kind of interesting to look back and think, man, if I had a fraction of the tools when I got into the industry, like, oh my God, that'd be amazing.
Yep. And I've had people ask me that too. When I go to Digital Dealer or NADA for even a bigger example, and you've got basically this a very large city of vendors with all these tools, right? And people will ask me, what do you think the number one tool is for this, whatever this is? The number one tool is the one you're going to use.
Yep.
And you're going to learn and you're going to master. That's the number one tool. So for the vendors, obviously you need to make that tool pretty as simple as you possibly can. You know, I always said third grade level. If you get a tool that is unbelievably great and you get it to a third grade level, I mean, they're going to do great with that tool, right? But if you put it at a master's degree level, and then you have people that don't have master's degrees, you know, we don't hire professors to sell cars typically, right? But then you gotta, and even then, even if it is at that higher level, train on their level, and like you said, show them, you know, and you know, high five them when they hit that next level, and use the tools. I mean, you have to. If you have a bunch of tools and you're spending a fortune every month on them, and no one's using them, no offense to the vendors, cancel.
Yep.
It's not. You're wasting your money.
Agreed. Well, I mean, go back to CRM. If you remember Higher Gear, I mean, that was in like freaking Comic Sans. Like that was the entry-level CRM, but people loved it because it was so simple. Like I go back to Autobase days when people loved, I don't think I've seen any software company out that had so much loyalty than Autobase. People loved that tool so much, but it was simple. Even though you couldn't use it anywhere except where you're on site, so server-based, at the time I worked for another CRM company, I was just shocked. I knew that if an Autobase customer was coming over to our CRM, I was like, this will not last, just because they were so loyal to that tool. And so it is interesting that you say that, because it's 100% true of just keep it simple, stupid. Please keep it simple. And I know there are businesses out there that their whole goal is to make it as complicated as possible to prove their own existence, which drives me crazy. Also why I have a job. So I guess I'm grateful for them for doing this to dealers, but it doesn't need to be that complicated. I mean, when we try to like take all those techie, because we have more acronyms than NASA, just strip it out. Hey, here's what this is saying. Here's the actionable items from it. Here's where you can prove. Here's where you're doing great. Here's where there's areas of opportunity. We make it so much more difficult than it needs to be.
Amen. Absolutely.
Well, Don, we're at this point of the show where we are jumping into the lightning round with these. Don't know. Don, he's got his little QR code right below here. But for those that are in podcast land and are listening, how can they find you and how can they get in touch with you?
Well, obviously you can find me on LinkedIn or on Facebook. But you can, my cell, I share it all the time. It's 330-581-5247. Feel free to text me, call me anytime. If I'm on a plane, leave me a message and I'll call you back. But, you know, you can email me. I mean, I have bunches of emails, but donbrady@shipyourcarnow.com if you're looking for shipping, or donbrady418@gmail.com for my personal email. And I'm here for everyone in the business. I love it. If I can help you in any way, call me, text me.
And he is. And if you are unaware of who this gentleman is, once you become friends with him, man, I just know like the number one, like the first comment that usually comes in is going to be an emoji with sunglasses and a tree. Like I can always count on you to like help the algorithm. So this man is really, when he says all this stuff, it is 100% true. He is here to help every single person that he knows, help the industry grow. And he's just like, they don't come much better than this gentleman right here. So yeah, thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the name of the show is Facts, Not Feelings. How do you differentiate between facts and feelings, whether it's in your personal life or in your professional life?
I don't know. I think it's a blend. I mean, I think that obviously I always say I wear my heart on my sleeve, right? So my feelings, I mean, people usually know how I'm feeling. And I'm probably not so much of a fact guy. I'm more of a feelings person.
Okay, we'll go with it. All right. What's one thing that most people wouldn't know about you?
That I'm very shy. I know that's a weird answer. People, when they meet me, they're like, yeah, right, you're not shy. but I am shy. I'm one of those closet guys. I fight through the shyness. But I am pretty shy, and I get tongue tied and nervous, and but I'm just me. So
that's all we can ask for. And I will tell you, as someone that just watching, we were talking before, I'm just watching from the moment I met you to where you are now. It's like, it's been so cool to see, like I said, and your graphics always just make me laugh. Like, I don't know who's the genius behind all that marketing, but it is, if you don't, it's for pure comic value. It's like, I guess this is like off the rails here a little bit, but who does all your, like, do you come up with all the ideas and all the play on memes and everything?
So I have a good friend of mine from LinkedIn, and it's weird. I've never met him in person, but his name's Rob Angus, and he appeared when I got on. I've only been on social media for 5 years, and I had just launched on social media, and I was 51 years old, and Rob Angus dropped my caricature in my inbox, and it's grown. I mean, it's gotten a lot better over the 5 years. I always said that he's my elf. Like, it was almost like the elf that was fixing the shoes or whatever. He was that guy. He was like doing things behind the scenes. But as far as the ideas, and he does my artwork. He and we talk once a week, if not more, and we kind of brainstorm. And I mean, it's just, and then he'll jump with it. He'll run with the ball on an idea. But like this last digital dealer where I just came back from, I had sent him a message and I said, my brother's coming on board. We want to go out to the show as the Men in Black. And we did. We dressed up as the Men in Black. We actually had the little wand that made the dealers forget about who they ship cars with when I flashed them. And then next thing you know, we're going. Well, Rob just runs with the ball and has all these memes with the Men in Black, right? So it's and there's been times where I'll hit him with an idea and he'll be like, really, how about Leave It to Beaver, And he's like, oh yeah. So next thing you know, I'm the Beaver. I'm the Beaver on Leave It to Beaver, So he just, I don't know, he runs with it, and it's fun. And he gets a kick out of it because he gets to see the reaction of all my family on social media, and that's who they are. I don't have connections. I don't even have friends. I have family on social media. I've got 47,000 people now that follow me across my couple small platforms, and I mean, a lot of them. I mean, my dad passed away. Horrible thing in my life that happened a couple years ago, and I had people from LinkedIn that got in the car and drove to my dad's funeral for me.
Oh,
I mean, when I say I've had a different type of experience on social media, it has been incredible. And I do consider all of you guys family, and I try my best to help you, like she mentioned, with the emojis and the likes. But Rob is the genius behind the emojis, or behind the caricatures.
Awesome. Like, it's always, every day I'm like, okay, what's coming today? It's very entertaining to watch, and it keeps it social. That's the best part of it. So, well, Dad, Don, I just want to thank you so much for being a part of this. Everything you do, I'm so grateful. I don't even know how we originally met, but I'm just glad that we did, because you're such good people, and I love what you're doing. And once again, I didn't even know that you're with Lou and Friends. So to hear that, like, what a great partnership that is. With that, everyone, you all know the drill at this point. Find a way to serve. Whether it is opening a car door, whether it's a kind smile, just do something to better someone's life today and bring a little bit more joy into their life. With that, everyone, we'll see everybody next week.